Sun editorial board, and we welcome Lee Fenson from Kitsap County and Major Jim Baker from the Salvation Army to speak about the homeless and veterans levy as proponents of the measure. What we'll do is give you guys 2 or 3 minutes, we'll say 3 minutes to kind of just present very basically what your position is, and then we'll go into some other questions from our group here. So please.
First of all, I have to say that even though I'm a county employee, I'm not being paid while I'm being here because I'm taking a proactive position on the levy, and so as a county employee, I can't push, on county time, positions that are partisan. Essentially what the problem is, as you're well aware of, we have a homeless problem in Kitsap County, but underwriting that problem is that we also now have a financial problem to help people meet the challenges of homelessness. And so, that's the problem, and part of the solution is, okay, we need to look for more funding sources, to help the agencies that actually do provide direct services, such as Jim's here. And that's, part of the solution is the levy. And when you look at this information in here, you'll see that, just for the instance, the community development block grants are going to drop, $2 million.
Page 8.
And then there are other basic state and government funding sources that are also declining as well, but at the same time the demand is going up. So we need to do something, in that regard, in regards to fixing it. And at the same time, wonderful charitable organizations such as United Way and the Kitsap Community Foundation and the Willow Charitable Foundation, their revenues are declining. Actually, I don't know about the Willow Foundation, but it's, if you talk to United Way and to the Kitsap Community Foundation, you'll see that they're having a great deal of difficulty as compared to the past in regards to raising contributions. Likewise with the nonprofit organizations that are actually providing the direct service.
And the problem is the funding from the federal and the state level are going away, but this gives us an opportunity at the county level to help our neighbors on a much closer level. And that's really about the only source we can go to tap on a large scale. So because, as you see on page 8 and 9 of the figures, huge amounts of money are going away. And our request to replace those at the county level is certainly not going to be replacing, but we've got to make an effort. We've got to care about our neighbors.
So with some of these, some of these drops in funding, it looks like about $1.5 million, $1.3 million. Am I reading that?
Well, if you're looking at the CDBG, you can do. I'm just arbitrarily say $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the recording fees. Now that's the recording fees that happen in the county auditor's office, and you can see they're dropping from 1.2 million to 700,000, projected for this year. So they're, all this funding is slowly drying up as state and federal funding is, is being cut back because of the budget crisis for those counties.
Yeah, and the stimulus money, of course, is going away too. So it just creates a very difficult time. At the same time, a lot of people are getting their houses foreclosed on. And just a lot of things are happening to put people in a very difficult situation. And we wanted to respond as quickly as we could and get something on the ballot as quickly as possible to try to generate some money, because this money is still not even going to be available until 2013. So we needed to move as quickly as possible to make the money available.
How was the figure arrived at? Well, it's
the $1.3 million.
You
mean for the levy?
Yes. 1.6 million? Is that
no, 1.3. It's actually the last. It came from the assessor's office. Mm-hmm. And the last time they brought it up was $1,350,000 is the rough figure. And
12 cents per.
It's based on 5 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. And then there are some calculations in here in regards to on how much it would actually cost in the various households. Can't remember where I put them in this document.
In any
yeah,
case,
page
so.
4. If you look at page 4, you know, a $150,000 home would pay $750 a year in additional property tax. In regards
As I
to
would say, it's half a case of beer.
Right. And so the amount of money per property owner isn't that great. I mean, there are people who are opposed to this, and so there's two motivations here in regards to one is just flat out political, no more taxes, which I respect. And then, but the other part is the financial issue is I can't afford it. And one of the things we tell people, if you truly cannot afford this additional burden to your property, to your property tax, what are you going to do when your car breaks down? This is an investment for folks that are really in financial straits.
Yeah, the philosophy, the approach really is we're helping people with a hand up, not a hand out. We're really trying to do prevention rather than cure, which is a lot less expensive.
Tell me what you mean. What do you mean by that?
Well, if we can keep a person in a home, it's a lot cheaper than trying to get them back into a home. That's one of the big approaches. Obviously, there are some that are already going to be homeless that we need to spend money to get into homes or help them in their homelessness. But if we can prevent homelessness to begin with, that is much, much better.
Right, and this is, the goals of the levy are to prevent homelessness as much as help those who are already homeless. And in regards to helping those who are homeless, there is this well, it's not new anymore, but there's this process called Housing First, or this program called Housing First. Traditionally, in the old, prior to Housing First coming along, the attitude was that, okay, if folks are having mental health and substance abuse issues, let's get them treatment first, and then we'll move them into housing. But what they found out with the Home First project is that it's actually better and more efficient if you get that homeless person into housing right away, especially permanent housing.
It just fits with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The first thing people need is security, safety. You provide them with housing, that provides it for them, and then it affects mental health, it affects so many other things.
How is the administration of the money, if this should pass and you have this $1.3 million, if I understand correctly, half of it goes to services directed at veterans in particular, and half of it goes to homelessness in general.
Correct.
And then when you're talking about prevention of homelessness and just solving the needs of people who already are homeless, I would imagine that's like food and things like that. How is that itemized out? Is it somehow set that this is where each of those amounts of money would go to?
No, it's not itemized out at this point. We felt we had to move quickly and get this on the ballot, and we didn't have time to define all of those as precisely as we'd like to. But we know there's going to be strong oversight committees. It's already mandated in the levy that there will be oversight committees to give guidance. And of course, we've got watchdogs out there. Sally would be a watchdog. Jack Hamilton would be a watchdog. There's going to be plenty.
Yeah, and the actuality of it is I wrote the levy resolution, and it was not placed in there because what we wanted to do is we wanted to give parameters on how the money could be used, and you can find that on page 4. But because the county does not want to increase its bureaucracy, the idea, and this is what my Human Services Division does, right now I think we have $40 to $50 million worth of contracts with 85 different providers across the board in regards to providing human services. The largest is $25 million with where we provide staff support to the Peninsula Regional Network, which is mental health money. But the idea is that there are professionals in our community, like Jim, Kids Have Community Resources, who know how to, deal directly with their clients. And so what we did is we set up parameters on how the money could be used. Yes, it is going to be split 50-50 between veteran population and low income and homeless in general. But within these parameters, we have 3 goals. One is reducing homelessness, and then also reducing the impact on emergency medical and criminal justice involvement. For example, I think it was 991 veterans were booked in the county jail last year. And I think around, I can't remember what the figure is, but it's in here, 337 homeless people were booked in the jail, of which 39 were veterans. And then the third part of these 3 goals is to increase self-sufficiency, for all the parties involved, which means, if they're lacking skills, like, for example, I was talking to Elizabeth Scott, the economist at the Worksource Center, a couple of weeks ago, and I asked her how many jobs have we lost since 2006, and we lost 5,000 jobs in the private sector. But right now, when you look at the total number of jobs, in 2006 there was like 86,000. We lost 4,900 jobs overall. The reason that the difference is some government jobs came back again. So part of this could be used for retraining people into skills that were high demand skills for our community.
And so those 3 goals are going to be used when you prioritize, or when there's a committee that would be able to
Two committees.
prioritizing where the money is.
But the most important part of this plan is what's called the Service Improvement Plan, which has to be done during the first 6 months of 2012 if the levy passes. And if you look at the levy resolution itself, you'll see it goes into great detail in regards to how the money is, should be used, what it should be used for, and what the requirements are for the Service Improvement Plan, including going out into the community and talking with all the people that are involved with helping the homeless, so that we come up with a community-based plan, rather than the county saying, okay, this is what we think is good for you, and this is what the money can be used for. And so it's very similar to what we do right now, and that's in regards to the money that we receive. For instance, my division, Human Services Division, also oversees the Worksource Centers in 3 counties. We get, WIA money, or Workforce Investment Act money, and it has parameters on how the money can be used. But then we refine it and define it in regards to how we feel that it's best to spend in our community. So it's a funding source. The county is, according to the resolution, will only receive up to 5% in regards to implementing this $1.3 million levy, which is not a lot of money in terms of the bigger picture. And it's also not enough money to cover all the challenges that are out there. Even when the community was at its peak in regards to funding the homelessness, there were still service gaps. We don't have a 24/7, 365-day-a-year emergency shelter. We don't have affordable housing where we can move these people into. We have kind of a block kind of in the middle where we have like over 300 transitional housing beds that are available, and they're full most of the time. It fluctuates and it goes in cycles in terms of bed availability. But so we had this block in the center, so there's people living on the streets. We can't go into transitional housing, it's not there, and then we can't get the transitional housing folks moved on into, affordable.
And of course, Sally's camp showed how big that need was. In 5 months, we housed 46 couples and families. So the need is certainly out there for that 24/7 shelter, family shelter, but we don't have one. So there's much bigger needs out there than even this levy is going to fund.
What have you, sir? What do you see in terms of? I think I'm understanding this right. There's also something that you call donor fatigue. Is
Sure.
that part of this argument that you've made?
No, because this is not donation. This is
No. A fear of that in the rest of the community. Sally's Camp doing a lot of fundraising outside of this sort of source, and this is an idea that you'd be more stable than that.
That's very true. Yeah, it's hard to go back to people again and again and ask them to voluntarily give to the same thing. So yeah, this would give us more stable funding.
Yeah, and actually that is an example of charitable contributions to nonprofits. What he went through just to raise the money to operate for 6 months. And I've seen his budget. It was around approximately $100,000. And he needed more money for that, because what he was able to do with that essentially is give those folks staff support 24/7, but those folks were being paid minimum wage. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but there wasn't really any intensive case management in regards to folks that had drug abuse or substance abuse issues.
Well, the case management was done through KCR,
Yeah.
and they did a great job. It was a great partnership. Partnership is certainly a big buzzword, and it's really happening a lot, especially in this economy.
Those partners, they would apply for money through this fund?
Yeah, it'd be like what we normally do business is, you know, once we got the service improvement plan in place, and then it would be a matter of putting out RFPs for in requests for proposals, in that, you know, different agencies could apply. Now, the other interesting aspect about the service improvement plan is that the plan is the responsibility of the Director of Personnel and Human Services for the county, and part of the analysis is not just the service gaps, but it's also the financial gaps. And hopefully my hope anyway, out of the plan is that we'll have a more concise idea on the distribution of funds and be able to consolidate it more and work closer with the funding sources so that our funding plan makes sense. Because right now it's kind of piecemeal. You know, okay, well, let's, you know, apply for the CB, you know, the community block grant. Oh, and then we'll do the recording fee grant over here, and then we'll do, you know, the other grants over here from the state. And so what I'm hoping that one of the things that comes out of the service improvement plan is a more cohesive approach in regards to the distribution of funds.
There's already a lot of coordination going on. There's a coordinated application for funds from CDBG and 5 other funds are all coordinated, and there's one application for all 6 of those funds, and then the board that oversees that decides what pot to draw from. There's also coming down from the feds that's actually in process now is a coordinated entry program where all homeless will go to one location, and that will be the coordination point for all homeless services. So all of these coordinations are coming down now. So I would see that what's proposed in this levy would be part of that overall development of that coordination.
Explain that part again. I'm sorry. That all homeless would be consolidated into one.
It's called a coordinated entry.
Physically, or this is just
physically?
It would be one point of entry.
Right. Now they would go to one point of entry, and it would be known throughout the county that they would go there, and then from there they could be pointed to wherever they're. Because right now the homeless have to guess. Especially if they're new in town, they have to guess. They come to the Salvation Army, oh, let's see, where do I go for my housing? Where do I go for my whatever? And they get bounced around from place to place, and sometimes they have to guess. So hopefully they get guided. But this coordinated entry would save a whole bunch of that.
And this is something like an organization like yours would, you would
we
be
would be a partner
if
in
you were
that,
chosen.
yes. And we would sign a working together agreement, all that. And it saves us, because then we don't have somebody coming in and wasting our time. We can then send them off to that coordinated entry, or they can...
Yeah, I guess maybe what I'm asking is the coordinated entry, most likely, it's something that already exists, so people, like, they already know they can go to the Salvation Army,
well,
and then you become the place that people then
but it's not a
since you're already in the
thing.
business of doing it.
Yeah, there's actually a proposal to raise funds to fund a coordinated entry system, and the estimate is about $350,000 to actually do it. It would be fully staffed with whatever's, however many are needed, with whatever space, etc.
Talk about just the veterans side of things, because there already is some county funding that goes in to veteran services.
Yeah, the county, which I oversee the county's Veterans Assistance Program, which has been around since 1888. It was actually enacted during the Washington Territorial legislation. It's probably one of the last things they did before we became a state in 1889. And it was originally set up to provide for indigent veterans of the Union Army of the Civil War. So if you were from the South and wore gray, you didn't get any funding. And it's been around ever since. And so it's mandated by the state to the county can collect anywhere from 1 1/8 cents to 27 cents, but it's collected through the county's general levy. Now this would still be in place, and it's entirely separate if the Veterans and Human Service levy should pass. So there would actually be the state mandated levy as well as the 2 sections of the levy that we're talking about today. Now, so a lot of people ask, well, there's VA, you know, they can take care of these guys. Actually, VA has 2 homeless programs that touch our county. One is called VASH, which essentially is Section 8 for veterans, housing, supportive housing, and it's capped at 35, and it's full right now. And then the other one is a homeless prevention pilot project that's being administered in King, Pierce, and Kitsap County through a cooperative effort with VA and with Catholic Community Services. And I spoke to the VA person who's one of the VA staff people supporting it, and he told me last Tuesday at the stand down that there was only 3 families from Kitsap County that were currently in that program, and right now it's capped at 50 families.
There are more that want to get it? Is it?
There's 3 from Kitsap out of 50.
And that's because
It's
it's
just
filled up too quickly, or because
that
that's all
I don't know. It's a new program. It's only been around for about 6 to 8 months, and so it had, you know, fits and starts getting going, but now it is starting to do well, and the population in those 2 counties veteran population is larger than ours. We have 35,616 veterans according to the Census Bureau, and actually, the numbers here on page 3 if you want to look at them, and so we're at 14%, you know, compared to the regular population in terms of overall population in terms of veterans. If you compare it to adults rather than take out the kids, then of course, you know, the ratio is higher. Where King County has 7% are veterans, and actually, you know, it's the Veterans Assistance, you know, program for the last 3 years. It's almost tripled in regards to services, and you can find that all the information is, you know, on the
countywide.
Yeah, the county veterans program, the one that oversee, but it provides temporary emergency assistance to veterans, and it's only it's the court of last resort. It's only $1,200 for a 2-month period, and you can only get it 2 years in a row. And we contract with Kitsap Community Resources to provide that service, you know, to veterans. And right now we're running far higher than we predicted. You know, turn to page 17. Actually, turn to page 19. You'll see that if you look at the, you know, 2009 and 2010 and 2011 year to date, you'll see that we progressively have gone up. But, you know, right now, 2011, at the end of August, we were already at, you know, 305. Now that's the number of veterans, but they come back more than once. You'll see that compared to previous years, it's continued to grow over the years, and then it's, you know, it's growing faster now, and the demand is there. Now the average veteran that, you know, uses our services is around 55 years old. The average family is 2 people in it, but the average income is about $1,000 a month for those veterans, and then the actual payout that they receive averages around $850. And so we're seeing this demand in regards to veteran services through the county increasing. At the same time, the amount of money that we had available, it has gone down in a certain extent. Now the money comes from tax revenue, and that's remained fairly constant over the years. It's been around $300,000 a year, and then actually if you turn to page 20, you'll see 2007 through 2012 in regards to the number of dollars that we've taken in. In 2007 it was 334 total, but it was only $286,000 in tax revenue. That's because we had over $1 million in fund balance, because for years the amount of money that was spent on veterans was far lower than the amount of money that was actually collected. So that fund balance built up. And then in 2009, at the suggestion of the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee, they suggested, because the county was facing such a financial crisis in that the Veterans Fund had over $1 million in the bank, is that they don't collect revenue on behalf of the Veterans Fund for the year 2010. And so there's been a little controversy, I'm sure if you read your blogs about it, when we talk about the levy, that always pops up too. And so the reality was that the suggestion came from the Citizens Advisory Committee on the budget. And also the Veterans Advisory Board was opposed to it, but facing the financial crisis that the county was in overall, and because there was enough money to take care of veterans through 2010, that they did not collect any money on behalf of the Veterans Fund in 2010. Now, it's been reinstated, and it's now at 1 1/8 cents per thousand. Now, they were allowed to do this by state law. The state law says if the fund balance is more than the amount that can be collected based on the minimum rate, then the county can lower the rate. And so what they did is they lowered it all the way to 0. But so anyway, when we took over, when I say we, the Human Services Department took over administration of the fund in 2006, and it sort of the transition took about 6 months. We looked at the $1 million in the bank and said, it ain't doing veterans any good sitting in the bank. We need to get it out and into veterans' hands. So we expanded and enhanced the program, and that's one of the reasons why we went to Kitsap Community Resources to contract with them, because in speaking with the volunteers who were doing it prior to my department taking it over, one of their complaints was that, or it wasn't a complaint, but they didn't have complete knowledge of all the social service agencies in the community. And so they did, they would say, well, you don't qualify for our program, or why don't you go down to the Salvation Army and they may have some money, or or go over to Kitsap Community Resources, they may be able to help you. And so they were kind of dropping out of the system. And so, in talking with Bert Ferruta, my director, what we thought is, okay, by putting them in KCR, we're also going to require them to go to an environment where there's a lot more programs. And that contract has really paid off, because, for instance, last year we paid out $330,000 in direct services to those veterans. I mean, we don't give them the cash; they get vouchers, but we pay the bill that's owed for the landlord. But KCR was also able to refer them into another $200,000+ of non-veteran programs. And so the program is actually working very well. We're very pleased with it.
Is that why these two things are connected, the homeless part and the veterans part? Because I guess I'm curious, maybe just
right. Well, no,
why are these two things?
Yeah, well then actually, why are we collected? Go to page 3, King County. They did this in 2005, back when the economy was booming, and they got it passed. And so I watched it, and it worked, and they were able to build up a record of good service in administrating their program, and provided a lot of services to veterans and non-veterans alike. And so
why does it work so well to put those two things together? That's what I'm asking.
I don't.
Because there is a Veterans Assistance Fund already.
Right.
Why would you not simply try to increase the amount for them and then run something separate for the homeless?
We're talking about why not increase the amount of money in the from the county's state mandate.
Yes, the rate that's collected.
Part of the conundrum for the Board of Commissioners, not for me, is that the state mandated levy is collected with our general levy. So when you look at your tax statement, and it's there, it just says county there, not the county road tax, but just the county. That's collected for all departments, and so it's within that. It's not a standalone levy that's off to the side. And so when if they raise the amount of money for the state mandated assistance fund, then that takes money away from other departments. So we're kind of in a competition internally. Now there's another fund that also that's mandated by the state that's collected as well, and it's for mental health, and it's 2.5 cents. But they don't have any discretion in regards to if it has a certain amount in its balance. that they can zero that one out, so that's always collected. So we have these two funds that are collected within the general levy that are mandated by the state, but then in actuality is that, you know, if they can increase, let's say they increase it to 27, the veterans went to 27 cents, what they're allowed to do. Well, right now, I think today's assessed county rate is around $1.02 or $1.03. Well, if they increase it to 27 cents, that's 27 cents that would not be available to the other departments that are dependent upon the general fund. And so that was part of the dilemma. So one of the things that they did in 2010, when they zeroed out the Veterans Assistance Fund, we also tried to get the legislature to change the law so the Veterans Levy or the Veterans Assistance Fund actually would be a standalone levy, so it would be collected outside of the general levy, and then that way the commissioners couldn't mess with it, which the Veterans Advisory Board supported because they didn't want the commissioners messing with their fund.
But the legislature does not?
No, it didn't get out of committee.
Is that something that maybe over the next 6 years there's a chance of happening? Because
I think that you know, there is an interest in the Veterans Advisory Board of pursuing this again. But right now the focus is on this 6-year levy. Now, in getting back to why is it, I just looked at King County as being a model and it worked over there, and so, you know, that's, I ended up writing it, and that's why, you know, I went for it here. And what's interesting is they renewed the levy in August, and it renewed at a 69% approval rate. And it was only a 33% turnout. And so when you talk to political pundits, they'll tell you, okay, with that low of turnout, those are usually a very conservative, older audience. And so it, you know, it really cut across the partisan politics in King County.
And that was the fund that really bought into the Housing First philosophy. That really showed that the Housing First philosophy really does work. It lowers the cost to emergency services, to hospitals, police, fire. It's a very cost-effective program.
if King County wanted, they did in 2005, renewed it last year, are these designed so that they would need to be continually renewed ongoing? I mean, I know you're looking to solve the problem, right, ultimately.
Yeah, and we try, you know.
But how, what do you say to assure people this isn't just something that's
it's going to last forever?
Go.
Yeah, no, it's there and it's in the resolution and you can read it. This is only for 6 years, period.
Right.
And part of this too is that when you look at the resolution, each of these boards has to provide annual reports to show that it's working.
Right.
And because in 6 years, I'm a taxpayer, and you know I wrote something that's going to cost me money if it's passed, but I'll vote for it. And the thing is, but if it doesn't work, who wants to renew it? You know, and we have to be able to prove to the public, and that's one of the other important things about this service improvement plan.
It's a very transparent plan.
It's transparent. It's a good plan because, and it's also good because it involves the community, and it does have this transparency because of these two different boards that are going to be appointed from the citizenry.
What do you think happens if it does not pass?
Well, you know, that's a good question, and we'll just have to go back to, you know, there's two, that's a very simple question that has an extraordinarily complex answer. And part of it has to do with, because we're really talking about two things here today. We're talking about financing, but then we're also talking about the broader perspective of the community and helping the homeless. So there's two things that always have to go in tandem together. One is, okay, we got to figure out a new way to finance to meet the challenges of the community's problems right now. And you know, and I think that's also what's interesting about you know, having this on the ballot is that it is going to reflect our community, and it's also a community solution, but because we're all going to vote on it. It's not something that's being mandated and pushed down by the county commissioners. This is truly a community effort, and that's one of the other reasons why I like it, even though I wrote it.
Yeah. How can you say you've got a healthy community when you've got homeless people on your streets? We're asking the local community to take care of its own and try to keep us a healthy community.